And a TGIF, everybody. Welcome into the First Call Podcast. Express Bet and First Bet representing here. I'm Jeremy Plonk, joined today, pinch hitting for Jeff Siegel, Mr. Scott Shapiro. Welcome into the show, Scott.
Pleasure to join you, JP. We got great races. I've got big shoes to fill here. One of the absolute GOATs is hopefully he'll be back soon, but hopefully I'm willing and able to help the cause here. Happy to join you.
Pinch hitting for Aaron Judge is kind of the way that it goes, I believe. We've got a big weekend of racing to talk about this weekend. It's Santa Anita Handicap Day on the West Coast at the Great Race Place. Fountain of Youth Day at Florida's Gulfstream Park. And, of course, in New York, there's the Gotham Stakes. So a trio of Triple Crown prep races. We're going to focus our attention on the big two, Gulfstream and Santa Anita, for the weekend. For the benefit of those of you on our audio channels, we'll run through the lineup in just a moment. If you're watching on YouTube or on X, be sure to like, share this out, help us build the audience, provide some comments in the comment section as well. Here are the races Scott and I will handicap over the next half hour or so. We'll go Saturday at Gulfstream Park for Fountain of Youth Day, starting off with the Canadian Turf, race number 9 on the card. Then we'll go to the Gulfstream Park Mile, the Honey Fox, and the Fountain of Youth Stakes. Big one there on the road to the Florida Derby. Then out to Santa Anita, where it's Big Cap Day. The Buena Vista Stakes, race 3 on the card, will be our first stakes to handicap. Then the San Felipe for the 3-year-olds, 2 at the top, maybe 3 at the top. 4 or 5 3-year-olds towards the Derby this year in the San Felipe, the Kilrow Mile for Turf Milers, and then we'll wrap it up with the storied Santa Anita Handicap at the 1.25-mile trip. I want to remind you that if you're betting with First Bet and Express Bet this weekend, be sure to do so. And into the promos because we've got a great one for you. $5,000 on the line in the Exactathon on Saturday. Basically, bet $2 or more exacta bets into your account at Gulfstream and Santa Anita. Depending on the number of exactas you win, if you hit 4 or more exactas at each track, you'll share $2,000 at Gulfstream, $2,000 at Santa Anita. With other players on the platform, will also take down those number of exactas or more. And the player who takes down the most exactas between the 2 tracks on Saturday split $1,000. Maybe you're the only one with the top number, and you'll take the entire $1,000. If the $5,000 exactathon, be sure to check that out on Saturday. First Bet and Express Bet. A couple other promos to remind you of before we get to the handicapping. We also have a $10 money back special on all the Kentucky Derby preps between now and April's Lexington Stakes at Keeneland. So if you bet with First Bet and Express Bet, again, opt into the promos in your account. $10 money back special on the 3 preps this weekend, the Gotham, the Fountain of Youth, and the San Felipe. That means if your win bet finishes 2nd or 3rd, you'll get up to $10 back in wagering credits in your account. But we're going to follow Scott this weekend, so you will not need that insurance. You're not going to run 2nd or 3rd. We're going straight to the pay line with these selections. So let's go to Gulfstream Park on Saturday. We'll start things off in race number 9. It's the Canadian Turf here at 1.16 on the grass. Scott, I looked at this race, and I don't see a ton of speed on paper in here. I don't think you want to be a mile out of it. The horse you like in here is Major Dude. Tell us why.
Yeah, I saw it the same way, JP, in terms of very little speed signed on. I think the one that'll benefit most from that is number 5, Silent Heart, who probably will be on the lead instead of just off it this time around after the first level allowance win on January 31st. Louis Saez aboard. I'd be shocked, in fact, if he wasn't on the lead, assuming a good break. But Major Dude, I think, is a horse that will be closer than it might appear on paper. This horse breaks pretty well, did so last time in the Pegasus World Cup Turf. Irad Ortiz, not an aggressive ride out of the gate. My expectation, though, with the lack of speed, is that his natural speed from the gate is going to carry him into the race into kind of a perfect pocket trip, unlike last time against Better when he was caught 3 wide. So I could see this maybe being 5-4, Silent Heart over Major Dude, but I think Major Dude is a classier horse. Still on the improve a little, has run well over this course. 3rd off the layoff. I think Major Dude runs down Silent Heart.
2 starts ago, he was there in time in the Fort Lauderdale.
3/4 in 1:10-4. It's Saratoga Flash and Win for the Money. Emmanuel on the outside. Major Dude looks loaded, but he's got no place to prove it. Grand Sonata finds a seam toward the rail and comes on next. There's an 1/8 of a mile to go. Win for the Money. He has the lead. Grand Sonata with an inside lane down the center. Fort Washington. Loose now is Major Dude, and here he comes. Major Dude producing a late bid, surging forward and getting up to win the Fort Lauderdale. Major
Dude for Todd Pletcher. Some trainers aim for particular races on the stakes schedule with their stable. This is one, the Canadian Turf for Todd Pletcher. 7-time winner. He won it last 2 years with Emmanuel. So no Emmanuel in this one. He's got Major Dude ready to step right into the pocket. Canadian Turf, race number 9 on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. A lot of great wagering at Gulfstream Park this weekend. I want to remind you of some of the big pools on Fountain of Youth Day that are expected. The early pick 5, they estimate the pool to be about $1 million on Saturday. The late pick 5, we'll talk about a couple of the races in that sequence coming up. $1.5 million expected to be in that pool. And the late pick 4, a lot of stakes there as well. 750,000 anticipated there. Coast to Coast pick 5 on Saturday is an all stakes pick 5. The Coast to Coast pick 5, low takeout, $1 minimum, and combines races from both Gulfstream and Santa Anita. Expected to be around 250,000. They hit a record Coast to Coast pick 5 pool right around that 250 mark last Saturday. I tend to think they're going to go way over that on Saturday in the Coast to Coast pick 5. We'll see about that. What do you make of the wagering format and some of the big bets coming this weekend, Scott?
Yeah, Jeremy, plenty of options to leverage your strongest opinions. There's a tropical turf pick 3 as well for those of you that want to tie up the 10th, 12th, and 14th. To me, the Coast to Coast has been a wager I've been fond of this year. Not necessarily because I'm up, but I just think it's a good wager. You look at the, the dollar minimum kind of sorts things out, doesn't allow you to overspread. I think the sequences are usually a lot of fun. I mean, this one, to your point, I'd be pretty shocked if this one did not break a record, considering last week did. And this is an all stakes one with a couple of really big races.
The big race on the card, of course, Saturday at Gulfstream is the Fountain of Youth, but maybe the headline horse comes in the next race we're going to talk about. That's the Gulfstream Park Mile, race number 11 on the card. It's the return of Mindframe. We haven't seen him since July last year, with narrowly missing in the Haskell. And of course, in just his third career start, he almost took down the Belmont Stakes.
Sierra Leone launching his bid on the far outside as the field turns for home. Mindframe on the outside is coming after Dornoch, and it's Mindframe and Dornoch head in head with a furlong left to go. Sierra Leone is closing ground. It's Dornoch hugging the rail. Mindframe a little erratic, but he's still right there with Dornoch in an absolute thriller. Dornoch and Mindframe, it will be Dornoch and Luis Saez to win the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga.
What do we get from Mindframe on the comeback? I always say a one-turn mile is the easiest race in all the horse racing for a comeback, because it's a one-turn race, only the one lead change for the horses here. It's not asking them for too much in distance, and the pace is a little bit easier than it is in a traditional sprint race at 6 furlongs or 7 furlongs. So it's a good spot for the comeback, but is it a winnable spot for Mindframe?
It's a great question. What a great race that Belmont was too, Jeremy. But Mindframe, to me, obviously the clear one to be in here. But the question is, is he going to be ready? Like you said, might be easy to get ready for, but he didn't draw favorably to the inside. And obviously this is not the ultimate goal, horse coming off those runner-up efforts in the grade ones. You add to that a little bit of this quirkiness when it comes to the shying away. You saw it there on the replay, and, just maybe a little concern with the lack of will to win, albeit against some of the best horses in his crop last year. And I just think it's a horse that's going to be a shorter price than I'd be willing to swallow.
The interesting thing is you probably would have liked to seen a race for him off the layoff before this one, perhaps, like Encino got. Encino's a horse who last year was running through the John Battaglia, through the Lexington. He looked like a real Preakness-type player for Brad Cox before going on the sidelines. He did get an allowance return in January at Fairgrounds, so now he's second off the layoff, and he got an easy tune-up in allowance company. So you'd almost like to see that same form cycle mirrored if you're going to take a short price on Mindframe, which he probably will be a solid favorite in here. We do have the defending champ in the Gulfstream Park Mile going in here, and a horse who runs really well at Gulfstream in Steel Sunshine. Was a nose winner of this race at 3-2 last year. You're going to get a much better price with the bigger names in here on Steel Sunshine this time around. That record at Gulfstream Park, 14 for 19 in the money with 6 wins on the main track. I know you like Steel Sunshine in here, looking to bounce back after the Pegasus.
Yeah, Jeremy, I just think he's the known commodity amongst them. You've got 2 horses that are, Encino did not run fast enough to win these races last year. And he had, a great, like you mentioned, good return race, but it was a 4-horse field where he broke on top and just jogged around there at 1-9. So not really sure too much what we can take out of it, other than it's good that he got, a paid workout in there. Right. But to me, you've got 2 horses. We just mentioned potential questions with Mindframe, and Encino still has to prove himself. Meanwhile, cross out the races of Steel Sunshine at 2 turns, and you've got a horse that would look way better for this race, because this is a 1-turn mile race, and he loves this 1 turn specifically at Gulfstream. I mean, 3 back, he won in the first level. I don't know, sorry, not a first level, but an allowance event. And as you mentioned, he got the job done at a shorter price last year in this race.
If you're playing multi-race wagers, do you let Mind Frame beat you, or is this a horse you're going to toss in and include? That's a tough call, because you don't want to be defensive, but you also probably don't want to let the absolute best horse in a sequence beat you. And the knock on him, obviously, is we haven't seen him in a while. But do you want to take down the other 3 legs of a pick 4 or 4 legs of a pick 5 and not have Mind Frame in there? How confident are you going to be swinging against him?
I think it all comes down to your opinions in the other races in the sequence. If I'm playing a race where I like favorites, or playing a sequence, and particularly I like logical horses around the Gulfstream Park Mile, which is sort of the case for me this year, I'm going to probably try to fade them on the majority of my tickets. If it's a situation where I love a 10-1 shot or even an 8-1 shot, and I'm singling, or if I'm against all the favorites in one of the races surrounding the Gulfstream Park Mile, I would never let this horse beat me. Then, to your point, he is the likeliest winner of the race, regardless of any knocks.
All right, let's go to race number 12, Saturday at Gulfstream Park. It is the Honey Fox, named for one of the better turf mares back in the early 80s, won the Orchid, and she won races all over the country. She won at Gulfstream. She's got the stakes named for her there, but big stakes winner in New Jersey, California, and all the way to New York, so coast to coast. Honey Fox, she's the stakes name here in race number 12, but the trainer that you got to watch in this race, the last 3 years running, has been Chad Brown. He won it last year with Chili Flag, Faith in Humanity 2 years ago, and the Speedy Filly in Italian 3 years in a row. So if you want to look for Chad Brown, you don't have to go far. Top of the program page, he's got the one in here. Tax implications. Big deep closer making the first start at Gulfstream Park for this one. Do we go with Chad Brown and just say, look, it's affiliate mare turf race, it's Chad Brown, do we go with it, or do you got another opinion in here?
I've got another opinion. I think tax implications will probably end up getting a good trip. I hate the wide posts in these 2-turn turf races, particularly the shorter the distance at Gulfstream Park, and being to the inside is never a bad thing unless you get caught in traffic. But I prefer someone that I also think will get an inside trip and get the jump, and that's number 2, See You Around. I think this is a wide open race, Jeremy, the Honey Fox, and I didn't want to swallow chalk. I don't think See You Around is going to be a huge price, but I'm just looking at who I think is going to get the best trip. And when I look, I think Special Juan, and as well as In Our Time, will be the prominently placed runners. Maybe Infinite Diamond. It seems to me that Irad's just going to be able to swoop right into a pocket type trip here on a horse that has a win over in the only start over this surface and is second off the bench.
Last night I started to handicap some of the multi-race sequences, and I got to this race, and there you're just looking for toss-outs, right? Like, how do I whittle a ticket down? How many potential winners are? And I got like the 1, yeah, I can make a case. 2, I can make a case. 3, I can make a case. But pretty soon I was like pretty far down the bench. The only horse I don't like in here is Infinite Diamond on the outside, like with no chance. This is a really competitive race, and we talked about like, well, what is your opinion on the other races in the sequence? How much can you hone down? This one for me particularly is going to be one where I want to buy as much of it as I can. And my good buddy Kurt Hoover always says, if it's more than half the field, you better buy it all. You don't want to be 6 deep and then leave 3 more prices hanging out there. So this is the race I think for me personally, I'm going to need a little bit of help on. Let's go to the video on your top pick in here, See You Around, and see if that can't put us on the winner here. Irad Ortiz has won this race 2 of the last 3 years in the Honey Fox. Let's see You Around in the Tropical Park Oaks that day. Also with Irada.
Less than a quarter of a mile to come. They're on their way home. 3/4. 1:11 flat. The leader In Our Time. Now time to go to work for See You Around. She's 2 lengths off the leader with a 16th to go. Here comes See You Around after In Our Time. In Our Time almost home. See You Around starts to lengthen that stride. See You Around getting up. See You Around wins the Tropical Park Oaks.
We go next to the Fountain of Youth Stakes, the headline event on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. Fountain of Youth for Grade 2 company here, purse of $415,000, 50 Kentucky Derby qualifying points to the winner, 25 to second, and so forth down the line. Somebody's going to get their ticket punched to Louisville for the first Saturday in May in winning this race, depending on previous points accrued and things like that. As many as 2 horses might be set for the Kentucky Derby after this one is sorted out. Solid Left is going to scratch the 5 in here because that runner ran yesterday at Gulfstream Park. A couple of these were cross-entered in that allowance race on Thursday. But the one who ran was Solid Left, so he's going to scratch. McKellen scratched yesterday, and so he will run on Saturday for Jose D'Angelo. So as we handicap this race, take out the 5, Solid Left. Field of 7 expected to go to the post for the Fountain of Youth. And Scott, this has been a chalky race over the last several years. Last 5 years, favorites have won 4 of these. No winner in the last 5 years has been 3-1 or more. And I kind of think it kind of comes down to the 2 favorites in here again. It's Burnham Square versus the upstart horse in here, River Thames, who's 2 for 2. Maybe you could make a case for Gate the Wire, the Swale winner on the stretch out. But to me, I don't think this race gets beyond the kind of obvious horses in here. We'll talk about Sovereignty in a minute as well. How do you see the Fountain of Youth?
I saw it similarly, Jeremy. I think this is a 2-horse race between Burnham Square and River Thames. River Thames obviously has a little bit more to prove, but maybe I could argue more upside. River Thames, not bred at all to do what he's about to do, but I don't know if he was even bred to do to get a 1-turn mile, and he did that very impressively. In fact, I thought he was a lot more professional in that race than in his debut. He still has to prove himself, the New York bred, but I think he's got a ton of talent, and I'm excited to see him. Where I trust Burnham Square to run his race more, but I don't know if he has quite the same upside as River Thames. But ever since he's added the blinkers, it's hard to argue that he doesn't have semi-unlimited upside. But like you, I think those 2 are the clear ones in here. Gate to Wire got a really good setup in the Swale. There was a lot of speed in that race.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if he runs a decent race here, but a little bit leery about him if he's going to be 6-1.
Yeah, Todd Pletcher, 4-time winner of the Fountain of Youth, most of any trainer. He won it with Forte a couple of years ago. Pletcher's got Gate the Wire. He also has River Thames in here. And, I think the interesting thing with the 6 here, your top choice, is that John Velasquez is riding. You say, well, what's the big deal with that? I mean, John Velasquez rides Todd Pletcher. He's ridden this horse the last 2 times. Because he's not riding locked in the Santa Anita Handicap. There's a grade 1 race worth as much money as this one and a lot of prestige, and his main mount locked is going to be an odds-on favorite. Here, River Thames may be the favorite, may not be the favorite, but it kind of goes to show the power of the Kentucky Derby, right? I mean, everybody's trying to find a Derby horse, even a guy who's won it multiple times like John Velasquez, but he's not traveling to ride locked out at Santa Anita. He stays here to ride River Thames. I think that's a good endorsement of this particular horse and the kind of talent they think he might have. I ended up with Burnham Square. I think this race is going to have a bit of pace to it in here. I think Burnham Square will be able to wear him down. River Thames, I'm not convinced about the 2 turns, right? And you said he wasn't even really bred to go the 1-turn mile. So at what I think is going to be on the shorter end of prices, I'll try to beat him in there. Let's talk Sovereignty for just a second. This is a horse who I had a lot of respect for after he won the Street Sense in October at Churchill Downs. He was one of my top 7, 8, 10 prospects coming into this year. I really thought that he had the credentials, a good looking resume, even a progressive colt who was going the right way. He looked to me like Bill Mott was going to have one who could really develop into a star for the Derby. He still may be a star 3-year-old, but I'm starting to worry about the Derby, though, on timing. This will be his first start of the year. That's not crazy in the Fountain of Youth. We've seen that in the past, but his workout tab has been very spotty. He's missed time in between. The connections are saying, we've had some issues. We haven't gotten everything out of him. Just look at the dates of his works that are published. December 24th, then not again till January 15th, not again till January 31st, then February 7th, February 15th. He's had 3 works back on pattern. Usually when a horse who's got like 6 works every 6 or 7 days right on pattern to come off this long of a layoff, he, to me, is going to be a short horse in this race. I think that gets him beat at probably an underlaid price. I think Sovereignty might be the best horse in this race that we're talking about by the time we get to, May, June, July, or, somewhere around there. But for now, I'm just a real stand against him on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to try to beat him out of the try, to be honest. I think there's a chance that he either isn't what he was when we saw him. I mean, those late pace ratings from Brisna, strong. This horse showed he could finish immediately, even at a 6 furlong distance. And he has a ton of talent, but he runs that huge race. We don't see him for a while. And then you mentioned the spotty work pattern. I think he's a very vulnerable horse in this spot, even like you said, if he becomes good. I think McKellen's a little sneaky to sneak in there for third. I think he's got some troubled trips in there. I know he's underwhelmed, but I think this horse could rebound with a little bit of a better performance.
But your top pick in here is going to be River Thames. Let's let the fans take a look at him winning last time out in Allowance Company.
At the top of the stretch after 3/4, it's River Thames for a narrow lead. 3/4, 1:10-2. River Thames turns first on top. Rolando tries to stay with him second. Super Times is third. They're an eighth of a mile from home, but River Thames has a gear the others don't have. He's now opened a 5-length lead in a hurry. Rolando is tiring, trying to hold on to second with Super Times, but River Thames proves his debut run was the real deal. He'll win here, wrapped up by 4 lengths. Super Times is up for second. Rolando ran third.
Again, Saturday, Gulfstream Park, huge day of racing. Estimated pools in the 7 figures all across the board. Late pick 5, late pick 4 should be huge. And we're also looking at a coast-to-coast pick 5 pool estimated around $250,000. Be sure to bet Gulfstream with us this weekend. Play that exactathon, part of the Gulfstream and Santa Anita offerings this weekend. Santa Anita Handicap Day coming up under the shadow of the San Gabriel Mountains this weekend. Should be a fantastic day of racing. Scott, the big cap's not what it used to be, of course. I mean, you talk about a race that goes back to the first couple months of the track's existence, created in the spring, opening winter, Christmas weekend of 1934, and then the big cap coming along a couple months later. It's been there since the very beginning, but the place on the calendar for the big cap isn't necessarily what it used to be, right? There are races now like the Saudi Cup and the Dubai World Cup, the Pegasus World Cup, even within the family of racetracks that take away a little bit from the big cap. We'll talk about the main event in a bit, but just on these big days of racing, this is one for me that's always been a special one. I love this day at Santa Anita.
Yeah, me as well. I was fortunate enough to be out there and attend it 5 years in a row. And like you mentioned, the history of Santa Anita itself, one of my, the best venue in the country. I've never been out of it, but the history there speaks for itself. And then this race kind of tops the list. The winning horses in this race, the winning riders, the winning trainers, basically a list of Hall of Famers.
Big day of racing, and it'll be televised nationally. CNBC will have a broadcast that includes all the big Kentucky Derby preps on Saturday. It's the first racing tour. We've got you for the Fountain of Youth in San Felipe, live on CNBC, 5 o'clock Eastern for the broadcast. Be sure to check that out. Also want to remind you the Ultimate Betting Challenge coming up this Saturday, $6,000. This is one of the high roller handicapping tournaments around the country. You can qualify for that Ultimate Betting Challenge today with a super low ratio qualifier, $1,000 entry fee Friday, as you can play that with Gulfstream and Santa Anita races for the Ultimate Betting Challenge on Saturday. Again, $6,000 handicapping tournament. Good luck to the players taking a shot at that. Let's talk about the Santa Anita Handicap Day card now at the Great Race Place. We'll start things off in the Buena Vista Stakes, race number 3 on the card. This is a Turf Mile, grade 2 in here. Scott, not a huge field. We've got a field of 7 in this one, and the pace should come from the outside. Omaha Girl, Tierra Patty down on the inside's got a little bit of pace as well. Maybe that sets it up for a filly who was really good last time, Rashmi.
You saw it the way I did, Jeremy. I think Tierra Patty looks maybe, you might quick look at the last race. Don't judge the lack of speed of this filly based on that big stumble at the start. But I think Jose Ortiz aboard this Jonathan Thomas trainee will send from the rail. And then Omaha Girl, not a runoff, but borderline. This horse almost certain to be sent from the outside. I think that lands Tirapati's stablemate, number 5, Rashmi, in a perfect position, much like last time in the grade 3 megahertz. This horse continues to move forward nicely from a figures perspective. It's hard to knock what she's done. The only recent loss is at 1.25 miles at 25-1 to She Feels Pretty going 1.25 miles. I think Rashmi looks pretty tough in here.
Yeah, Eastern-based Jonathan Thomas has had a good meet with horses out at Santa Anita, including a couple stakes winners. One of those was the Megahertz Stakes with Rashmi. If she repeats this performance, she'll be tough in the Buena Vista.
Mahina has saved every inch of ground. She'll cut the corner as the field turns for home. Here comes Sariha on the outside, along with Rashmi. They have to get to Rashmi, who has the lead. Rashmi's in front. Mahina is on the move in between horses. Liguria is next. Sariha did not go on, and it's Rashmi by 3.5. And Rashmi, powerful performance in the Megahertz. A no doubt about it victory. Mahina and Liguria.
Other one to watch and hear from me is Uncorked, the two, just a total flip of the post. Last time out in the Gold Dakota Stakes at Del Mar on Breeders' Cup weekend, 10 out of 10 going a two-turn mile. Now gets the two-hole. That's a good sign. Rakia was just dominant on the front end that day. She closed and ran second against a winner you're just not going to reel in when she got the trip that she did that day. So I give Uncorked a shot in here. And of course, anytime he got Phil D'Amato in one of these turf stakes at Santa Anita, he won this race 2018, 21, 22. He's usually got him set up here. So I'll take Uncorked underneath Rashmi in here. That's the way I see it. Let's take the 5-2 exacta in the third at Santa Anita. Let's go to the 8th race on the card at Santa Anita on Saturday. It is our big Kentucky Derby prep on the West Coast so far this year, and maybe around the country. If I'm right about the way I rank the horses in the Countdown to the Crown scouting report each and every week, this is the race of the year so far in the San Felipe, because I've had journalism ranked number 1 for most of the year since his win in the two-turn race in the Los Al Futurity. I think Barnes is right there in the 2 slot for me, and I think Rodriguez is right in there around the 4 or 5 slot. I just think this is a race, while we only have 6 in the entry box for the San Felipe, 3 of them are very, very legitimate Kentucky Derby contenders, Scott.
I couldn't agree more. Easily the strongest up top field of the year. Maybe not from a wagering perspective, but there's definitely ways to include this race in wagers and still find a way to find value. And I think it's interesting. You know, Barnes to me has stood out. $3.2 million purchase from Zidane Racing Stables, and not really that bred at all on the Dan side. So clearly, you know, a horse that they targeted at that sale, the FTS August 2023 sale, and it's just been managed all along like Bob Baffert thought this was his best young horse. They take him to Churchill Down to break his maiden with the bigger purse, bigger field, does that, was still green, and then last time really cemented himself in the San Vicente. I think that, you know, there's other talent in here, but until proven otherwise, I've got Barnes at the top of the crop.
You look back at his pedigree, he's by Into Mischief, who can obviously get classic horses, but also sprinters. And then the dam side of the pedigree, you see the dam side of American Pharaoh, and you say, well, what are you worried about? But the dam side of this pedigree is almost all sprinters. You go back, the third dam is Dream Supreme, one of the best 7 furlong sprinters we've ever seen, I think, in the filly and mare rank. She was just absolutely stone cold 7 furlong sprinter in the Steinbrenner Silk. So Barnes hasn't gone the 2 turns yet, but Bob Baffert's done something interesting in the morning that he does, not a lot of other trainers do. He's been working 6 furlongs a lot. Yes, a lot of trainers do that, but he doesn't do it from the 6 furlong pole to the wire. He runs it from the half-mile pole past the wire into the clubhouse turn and clocks that way with the 6 furlong work. And it's basically a pseudo 2-turn workout that the horse gets, you know, a little bit more used to lead changes and what's going to happen when they extend out around 2 bends. I think it's a shrewd training move. Not a lot of trainers do it that I'm aware of, and Baffert's had success with it. And you see Baffert gets a lot of these horses who on pedigree you don't think are going to be classic horses and get there. American Pharaoh was out of a Yankee Gentleman mare, and you just thought, okay, this is a miler, right? Never going to run further than a mile. And of course, he swept the Triple Crown with relative ease, except other than, you know, the stretch run in the Derby was hard work for him. But you know, Baffert can get them the distance. There's no question about that. We'll see if Barnes can get the trip and get the 2 turns. I think journalism is the play on Saturday because I think he's the better Derby prospect. But at 1.16 miles here, Barnes is going to be probably the sharper horse of the 2. But from a value standpoint, I don't see these 2 horses as night and day difference. So if it's going to be 3 to 5 on one of them and 3 to 1 on the other, I'll take the 3 to 1 on the gamble this time around, but I do think it is absolutely advantage Barnes in here. Another thing, and maybe I've overthought this a little bit, but Baffert's orchestrated these races so far at Santa Anita, right? The Lewis, he had all the speed. In the San Vicente, he had all the speed, even though that race was 7/8. Nobody's kind of orchestrating a sprint race. But now you've got a situation where Flavian Pratt is riding Rodriguez, and Barnes is opted for by Juan Hernandez. Hernandez rode last time against some of the Baffert horses, right? In the race against Citizen Bull, Hernandez was aboard Rodriguez, and he just kind of played the laissez-faire, right? I mean, just stay back here and let him go. I don't know that Pratt is going to ride to like a defensive instruction so much. He's not based in Southern California year-round anymore. He's riding mostly Brad Cox horses on the trail to the Triple Crown. I mean, yes, he's riding here aboard Rodriguez, and he doesn't want to sting Baffert by any stretch, but I don't think he's going to be completely passive. I think Pratt would be more aggressive against Baffert than Hernandez would be against Baffert. And therefore, I think you're looking at a situation where Rodriguez might push Barnes a little bit more than what we've seen in the first two legs of the Santa Anita Derby series amongst the Baffert horses. If that's the case, it gives journalism another shot. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention with journalism, he did miss a workout in January that kept him from running in the Bob Lewis Stakes. So he is behind a little bit on schedule. He's had a very good work pattern since then and good visual works. You can go to Watch First and check out all these workouts, firsttv.com and on Twitter at Watch First. Journalism has worked really well in company, and he's been on pattern now since late January, 23rd, 30th, 9th, 16th, 22nd. He's working right on pattern like he should for this race now. But I wish he would have got the start in the Lewis Stakes for sure. But value-wise, I'm going to take my shot with journalism in here.
That totally makes sense to me if these morning lines play out or close there to it. And there's no way journalism is going to be anywhere near the price of Barnes. I don't disagree with you. I think I lean towards your latter point that maybe this is a first race for journalism. I know you can't be too picky and choosy where you're setting these horses up for, but first off the layoff with the hope of the Derby being third off the layoff, maybe a better run next time. And maybe out of these horses, the one that we, suspect will want more ground based on pedigree, based on maybe watching how he finishes. So I totally understand from a wagering perspective, though, why journalism would make more sense to wager on than Barnes.
Yeah, in terms of a Derby prospect, his two-turn routes and he's won back-to-back, triple-digit brisk late pace figures. He is finishing up strong around 2 turns. I really like him a lot. But the horse to beat and the most likely winner, no question about it on Saturday, regardless of the price, certainly would be Barnes.
Fourth, 3 off the pace. Another 2 back to Smooth Cruising, who's guided to the far outside. Less than a half mile to go, and it's McKenzie Street. The pace is moderate. 3/4 of a length to Barnes, sticking right with him in second. Romanesque is very eager in third. Another neck back to Bullard, called on now outside of him. And Smooth Cruising 3 wide, coming to the quarter pole. Barnes makes his move. And there goes Barnes, opening up a length and a half quickly on McKenzie Street in second. Bullard set down. He's under serious pressure as Barnes turns for home. Fuller run in the San Vicente, opening up by 3. Romanesque rallying in between horses. Bullard on the outside, but it's a 1-horse race coming to the 16th pole. Barnes is a beast. Another San Vicente for Bob Baffert. This time it's Barnes, handridden to a 6-length victory.
Another San Vicente for Baffert. He'll try to get a 10th San Felipe on Saturday, a race that he's won 9 times. Let's go next to the Kilroe Mile, race number 9 on the card Saturday on Big Cap Day. Kilroe Mile, named for Jimmy Kilroe, the longtime racing secretary at Santa Anita for almost 40 years. Hall of Famer, one of the great executives in racing. The Kilroe Mile, grade 1 race here, 2-turn mile. Who do you like in this particular one, Scott? It's been a race where some older horses have had success in here. Last 8 years, 4 winners, 6-year-olds and up, and we've got some horses who are veteran stock in here.
We do, and this is one other race that I think looks like a 2-horse race, and I hope we get the trend of 6-year-old and older continuing. I think the way the race is going to play out will work out perfectly again for El Patente, who's in razor-sharp form for a razor-sharp trainer. Dan Blacker, he won in Saudi, of course, with my racehorses, Straight No Chaser. He's won his last 4 starts at Santa Anita as well, and I believe is 6 for 9 for the meet. And this horse is in great form. He's got a great turf rider in Hector Berrios, and I think he's going to get a very favorable trip with Air Force Red down on the inside, Cabo Spirit to the outside. I think those two are the likely pace setters. Even if one of them doesn't break well, I don't think it necessarily hurts. It might even help El Potente's chances. He's capable of going to the lead even, but he's really learned to relax under Hector Berrios. Third off the layoff, I think El Potente as the 2-1 second choice has the edge over the favorite Mi Hermano Ramon. Will get the jump. Also didn't have to travel all the way to Gulfstream for what was probably a race that was very important on the schedule in the Pegasus World Cup turf for trainer Mark Glatt.
Yeah, El Potente just gets to stay home for a Blacker Barn that can't miss right now. This horse is 2 3/4 lengths away from winning 9 in a row. When you talk about turf racing, the margin of defeat is narrow in the ones he's lost, and he's won 6 of his last 9, including the Thunder Road last time.
3, Astronomer between horses, Cabo Spirit at the rail, Paxawallop drops out of it, down at the rail, Seal Team is trying to make some late headway as El Potente and Hector Berrios put away Air Force Red, Seal Team running on willingly, but El Potente is lights out, a tremendous effort out of him. El Potente dominates the Thunder Road. Seal Team was second best, photo for third, Air Force Red and an oncoming.
Almandari is one I'm going to throw in there on the underneath as well for Antonio Frezu, riding for Phil D'Amato, a horse who's freshened up now, might come back running off the layoff. So I give Almandari a shot for the underneath, but I agree. El Potente, Mi Hermano Ramon, those are certainly the top runners at the head of the list for the Kilroe Mile. Let's go to the Santa Anita Handicap next. It's the big one at the Great Race Place, 1.25 miles here. We've got a couple shippers from the East and the Midwest that we don't always get in the big cap. It's been back since Jimmy Jerkins won this race with Shaman Ghost, that we saw a horse from the East in 2017 win the Santa Anita Handicap. There have been a couple horses that were transplanted from the East out to John Sadler and became West Coast horses who've had some success in this race. But these are true shippers that aren't coming out here to stay. They're coming out here to try to take down the purse, the $400,000 or $300,000 of the Santa Anita Handicap. That being Hit Show and Locked. Hit Show for Brad Cox coming off a win in the Louisiana Stakes down at the Fairgrounds. Locked coming off a second-place finish in the Pegasus World Cup for Todd Pletcher, that at Gulfstream Park. Is it one of the shippers? Do the locals have anything to hang their hat on in here? You've got Express Train, who won this race a couple of years ago. Does the 8-year-old have another punch in him after winning this race in 2022? Or are we talking about shippers exclusively here?
Well, I mean, I think the shippers are going to be the most heavily bet horses for sure in this race. You mentioned Locke, who was all but certain to go off, the favorite coming in off the runner-up effort. Well-beaten runner-up effort, though, to White Abarrio in the Pegasus World Cup. And then you have Hit Show, who has more foundation and has far more wins at 8, but hasn't won a Grade 1 yet. Not that Locke has the Grade 1, of course, under his belt as a 2-year-old. Mm-hmm. I think this race is going, I think there's both these horses have question marks, in my opinion, to an extent. So taking short prices is something you have to think about. Locked, major question. Adding the blinkers, shipping cross country, he's never proven at the distance. And then you look at Todd Pletcher's numbers, Jeremy, in for putting on blinkers for the first time in a graded stakes race. 2 for 23, 47 ROI, 47 cent ROI over the last 5 years. So tough for me to get excited about that. I'm not sure if that will play into your handicapping.
Yeah, because blinkers are a move that are either to get a horse involved in the race earlier or to get them to focus. And when you're talking about an elite level horse like Locke, we shouldn't be talking about problems at this stage, right? So the blinkers on is almost an admission that we got to do something here. And his form is obviously very, very good. He's won 4 of 7, but the second place finish, a runaway winner to behind White Abarrio last time. They're trying to shake it up in here. I don't know if he gets the 1.25 miles. He's only run 3 2-turn races in his life. He's got a win, a second, and a third. He's dominated around 1 turn in his races, and the 1 turn and the 1 win he has around 2 turns was at Keeneland in the Breeders' Futurity when they used the 16th pole finish line. So he really hasn't had a full stretch run 2-turn victory. He's only had 2 attempts at that, but he has had that opportunity. It's not a long stretch run at Santa Anita by any means, but it's certainly not a 16th pole finish line that we're talking about. And I think he's going to be challenged in here in 1.25 miles because it's not the longest stretch in the world, but it is at the end of the longest race of his career. And how much will Locke still have left in the tank in 1.25 miles? I think Hit Show should get a really good trip in here. They're both going to carry co-top weights at 124. Flavian Pratt's got the mount on Hit Show. He hasn't ridden this horse since the Oklahoma Derby at Remington back in 2023. Pratt gets the mount in here. Of course, Pratt also out riding in the San Felipe, riding Rodriguez for Baffert. But I think Hit Show for Brad Cox is the reason Pratt is here and maybe not at another venue over the weekend. So Hit Show to me, I think, is the horse to beat in this at 1.25 miles. Miramati, maybe the best of the local hopes in here just because of his brilliance and speed. How far he can go, though, is a major, major question mark. This son of Into Mischief has never been tried this far. He did have a 1 1/8 race in the Native Diver and completely spit the bit in that race. So expecting him to get the 1.25 miles is asking a lot in a race that really has a decent amount of pace about it for this level. So, for 1.25 miles, there's a little bit of pace in here. JB Strikes Back, New King, Miramati, Midnight Mammoth has a little speed. Tarantino's got a little speed. So if you're a finisher in here, there is no excuse for Hit Show.
There isn't. My only concern with Hit Show is just how good he actually is. I thought at 2 he was going to be a star, that Keeneland maiden breaker, and he ran great in the Derby, to be honest. And we didn't. From there, Brad's kind of treated him. Brad Cox, this trainer, has kind of treated him a little bit like the second tier in his barn. It doesn't necessarily mean anything bad, though. He's loaded, so he's got to make these kinds of cases. But my assumption is they want the 1.25 miles. They think this is going to be a good spot for him, and that's why they set him out here. But at 2 to 1-ish, I don't think he's a tremendous bet, but I do think he makes a really good contrarian single, or perhaps semi-contrarian single in some of the horizontals.
Yeah, because I think Locked will be singled heavily by a lot of players. So if you beat Locked in the Santa Anita Handicap in the multi-race wagers or the coast-to-coast Big Five, just having the second choice might be enough, because a lot of people won't want to go too deep to double the price of their ticket. You're going with the single. I'm going with the single of Hit Show for the same reason of let's beat the favorite in here. We get a good pace set up. I agree. I think he is second tier, but this Santa Anita Handicap field feels more grade 3, grade 2 beyond Locked. And if the 1.25 miles gets Locked to beat, then it really doesn't matter what the grade of the race is. And that's kind of the hope in terms of the handicapping. But no question on resume, Locked has taken on tougher competition and looks to be the more brilliant, talented racehorse than Hit Show. But 1.25 miles is the great equalizer, right? The best horse rarely wins the Kentucky Derby. I mean, there's 20 horses and everything else there. But 1.25 miles does separate a lot of the other factors out.
Absolutely. And I think one horse, if I'm looking to an outsider, obviously, if you think a hot pace, Katona, got the big setup last time, could, take advantage of another setup. I just don't know how good he is. Tarantino intrigues me now with Edwin Maldonado aboard. I don't know if this is going to happen, but he was ridden pretty aggressively from the inside last time, but not over, they went pretty quick. Maybe with the outside post, if they, look at this on paper and the ability, I think, to get more distance, at least from a pedigree perspective, and seems to be, getting a little better since being claimed by Peter Yurton. I think maybe he could hang around for a minor share, but I just kind of came back to Hit Show every time I looked at the race between pace, distance, and the concerns with Locked.
That'll wrap up our handicapping of the 8 stakes races this week on the First Call podcast. We took you 4 through Gulfstream, 4 through Santa Anita, including the Santa Anita Handicap. All those races, including the entire full card from Gulfstream and Santa Anita, part of the $5,000 Exactathon promotion Saturday with First Bet and Express Bet. So get your Exacta bets in, minimum $2 wagers. But if you hit 4 winning Exactas on the card at Santa Anita, 4 winning Exactas on the card at Gulfstream Park, 4 or more, you'll share $2,000 at each track with only other players on the platforms who hit 4 or more Exactas. And if you're the player who hits the most Exactas of everybody who's registered for the contest on Saturday, you'll share $1,000. You and whoever else might have that highest number. Maybe it's just you, and you'll take down the entire prize. So $5,000 up for grabs if you're playing Exactas, and we know you are. You might as well be playing them with First Bet and Express Bet on Saturday, because if you hit a couple of them here and a couple of them there, you're going to be adding some extra cheddar to your wagering balance. Also want to remind you, coming up on Sunday, a chance to add some serious cheddar to your wagering account. An estimated $4 million pool if the Rainbow Six continues at Gulfstream Park. It's mandatory payout day on Sunday. A little over $250,000. We're approaching $300,000 in the carryover as we go into the Friday program. So this has to carry Friday and Saturday yet to get to that $4 million estimate on Sunday. But win, lose, or draw, it's a mandatory payout in the Rainbow Six coming up on Sunday for Gulfstream Park. So be sure to play that with First Bet and Express Bet. Looking forward to all the Gulfstream action on Sunday with a mandatory payoff there at Gulfstream. Scott, been a pleasure handicapping with you over the last half hour or so. Hope you hit some winners this weekend and take in all the action. Want to remind viewers out there that I'll be back on Tuesday with the It's Official podcast, wrapping up all the weekend's hot topics. Maybe even throw in a little Luan Machado getting sued for misjudging the finish line talk on the It's Official podcast this weekend. Should be a lot of fun when we get to It's Official on Tuesday. But we got a lot of great racing over the next couple of days, partner.
We sure do. It's one of the more exciting days of the winter with the Derby prep races. Of course, the big cap on top of that, and a ton of great wagering opportunities, like you mentioned, in all the pools, the tournament, big times, big happenings for First Bet. And I'm looking forward to hopefully profiting off of it.
You can follow more of Scott's work on the blog section at firstbet.com, news.first.com, and at expressbet.com. Also does the Horse Sense podcast with Bailey Armour, so be sure to check out that as well on the YouTube page for ExpressBet. All of the action that Scott covers throughout the course of the week and the handicapping picks and blogs that he has for us, be sure to check all those out. I'll be back on Tuesday, but between now and then, have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll talk to you then.